Everybody, I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs in Kansas City. I'm the host of the Sports Psychology Hour radio show. Airs every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 Central Time here in Kansas City on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome to our live stream event tonight. Looking forward to talking with Brock Gingrich. He's a football player from the University of Delaware, and he's hoping to get ready for the NFL draft. And we'll see what happens. I'm going to be anxious to see how everything works out for him. But in addition to my radio show, we've launched the Sports Psychology Hour as a podcast. Got close to 10 years of podcasts on my website, winnersunlimited.com. Click on the podcast tab. You can hear all kinds of interviews. And in fact, Brock, you'd like it. I've interviewed Al Saunders several times. Dick Vermeil's been on my show. Mitch Morse has been on my show. The center for the Jacksonville Jaguars had Harrison Butker and Tommy Townsend, the kicker and punter. And Tommy's now with the Texans, but when they were both with the Chiefs. So a lot of NFL players have been on there. But visit my website, click on the podcast tab, and we're doing a whole new series of conversations with coaches and athletes. And I'm really lucky to have Brock Gingrich on tonight. He is a football player from the University of Delaware, and a very good one, by the way, an offensive lineman, offensive center. So, Brock, thanks for joining me tonight.
Appreciate you having me on.
So tell us a little bit about you're going to be looking forward to the NFL Combine, the draft, all that coming up, right? Tell us a little bit about how you feel about all that. Before we get into a little bit of background about your experience playing football in college and high school, just tell us where you're at right now with all that, because that's going to be pretty exciting.
Well, every day is just different, and waking up, just going to the facility and being able to work out and have people there that take accountability, watching me, making sure that I'm doing the right things. First couple of weeks, you start feeling it all over your body, and that's how you feel. And when you're in the NFL, and I think when you think about it, it's all about the process, and you've had to go through that process during high school to college, and now college to the next level, and you got to embrace it. I know I definitely got a few tasks I got to take care of, but it's just exciting to be able to wake up and just get after it.
Has this been a dream of yours since you're a young man? Yeah, a little boy, something, gosh, I'd love to be a professional athlete. Is that something you've dreamed about, or is this something just sort of came about for you?
Well, absolutely. When you're a little kid, you always look up to these professional athletes, and I think that that's always what I wanted to be. I think when you have those goals when you're younger and you just keep achieving them, the sky's the limit. And I'm just waiting for those next couple of goals, and just excited to see what happens.
As an offensive lineman, there's tremendous need for people like you out there to protect quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Your role, you don't get a lot of notoriety as an offensive lineman. When I work with several offensive linemen who've been on the Chiefs and other teams, and one of the things they always tell me is, Doc, the only time people really notice you is when you get penalized or make a mistake. Otherwise, nobody knows you're there. Is that how you sort of feel about it?
Definitely sometimes you feel that way, but at the same time, like, there's so many people on the team that look up to you. You turn around, you look at the quarterback, you look at the running back. I think they show a lot of gratitude, and I think that is all about the team. Everybody has a role, whether that's you're the water boy, you're the guy cheering on the sidelines. I think everybody on those good teams, you got to realize you have a role.
Your success has happened. I guess you've had people throughout your career who have encouraged you, guided you, influenced you. Could tell us a little bit about some of those people and what they did for you and how they got you to this point?
Well, it's definitely shout out my dad. He's been there all my life, and I think being that he was my high school coach, so he coached in my high school for 31 years.
Oh, wow.
He retired when I graduated high school, so he'd be able to watch my college games, and just being around him. And I even had him as a high school math teacher too. So I had him there. I had him as a coach. I had him as his dad. And just being able to be around him. And when I was younger, being a water boy for those other older kids and just watching how they embraced high school football. It was just one of those things where, being from a small town, you either had it or you didn't. And I think just getting raised through that system, and my family is full of athletes. I think that definitely helped out as well. But another person I'd like to give a shout out to is my old track coach. He was a world-renowned javelin throwers coach around the country, and people would all over the state of Pennsylvania would come over and get coached by him. And he had to deal with a lot of health complications, and he no matter what, he was there at practice, whether he had chemo that day or not, and he'd show up to practice, work with us, and just his resilience through the whole process, and just how he carried himself. And I think those are the things that I always keep in my back pocket, are the quotes that he used to say. And I just he passed away a couple of years ago, and that hit pretty hard. But I know that.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
I appreciate that. I know he's in a better place, and he's feeling good. So that's all I can ask for.
What did having people like your dad and your track coach, how did they influence you? How did they impact you? And I'll carry more over into having your dad as a coach, because that's a whole different one, because I've worked with so many people who had their dads as coaches, and sometimes it's not the best thing. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think so. Like I said, like my dad was the football coach, but when I was younger, he decided not to push me into football right away. I actually played youth soccer for 3-4 years, and then I got a little too physical. And my last game, I got a red card, and that was about it. That's all she wrote. And just one of the biggest things my dad always taught me and my sisters when we were younger is you got to be the best version of yourself, and that's treating people with the utmost respect. And I mean, you look at me and you think that I might be a little bit mean, maybe a little bit aggressive, but that's just on the football field. I think that having this platform and being able to have this platform, I mean, you just get to meet so many people and you get to create relationships with everybody. I think that's one of the biggest things my dad always told me, was that win or lose, I'm going to be the best version of myself. That's it.
Having a dad as a coach, I've worked with so many people throughout my 44-year career who've had their dads or moms as their coaches. And for many people, it's been a blessing. And for many people, it's been a curse. I mean, the people who've taken advantage of it, it's been a wonderful experience. But for a lot of people, it's been a real difficult situation for them, because no matter whatever they did, they were being evaluated, whether it was on the sports field, at home, in school, whatever. When your dad's a teacher, a coach, and your dad, he's in your life all over the place. So how did you handle that? Because I'm sure you got some grief from somebody along the way about your dad being your coach.
I mean, I definitely got a little bit of your dad's the coach, and that's just kind of how it is. But at the same time, even though he wasn't my position coach, offensive line, he was the offensive coordinator, and he'd rip my butt more than anybody else on the team. So I think people around me saw that I had to work even harder because my dad was my coach. I think that at the end of the day, you either got to make it a good situation.
Was that? Let me interrupt you there, Brock, because that you just hit on something. Because it was, he was coaching you, okay. Did you feel extra pressure to have to be better than everybody else? Did you feel, because, I'm going to go home, he's going to tell me about it if I go to, whatever happens at home? Was that pressure on you? Obviously, you've succeeded at it and thrived on it, but so many people don't. So many people have their parents as coaches. They can't get through it. So how was that? Obviously, you guys had a great relationship, and that probably had a big part of that.
I think, well, absolutely. I mean, my dad and I have a great relationship, and I think just having him being able to critique me in a way that I understood, because you know best that everybody doesn't respond to criticism and expectations all the same. And I think sometimes there'd be a size 12 up my butt, and other times there would be a nice little high five when I got to the sideline. And I think that just those expectations and goals were one of the things that made me be able to strive to something bigger than myself or my dad together. And I think just looking back on it, it's wild. It's wild to think. I'm grateful. It was an unbelievable experience to have that.
Well, you're fortunate, because as I'm listening to you, and we've never met before tonight, but you're fortunate because even if your dad was on you, you knew he did it out of love and he cared about you. Because I've had so many young men and women whose parents, moms and dads, have coached them, and they'll get on them and they may love them, but boy, they don't think they do sometimes. So obviously you were able to get through that. What would you say to somebody whose parent is their coach? What would you suggest to them about communication skills and talking with mom or dad about the pressures and expectations that might be there?
I mean, I'm going to be the first one to say my relationship with my dad wasn't always the best. I mean, there was a practice one time where I had a test and honors pre-calc that day. We had a big practice, and let's just say I didn't do so hot on the test, and I kept nagging at my dad during practice to tell me what I got on the test. Well, he got more mad at me at practice than he's ever been mad at me. So I think just being able to live with the good and live with the bad. I mean, there's not going to be perfect days, and you got to be able to have those conversations outside of football, outside of the classroom, and just being able to talk to him or her one on one. I mean, that was one of the things that was always nice is he was transparent with me, whether I played good or whether I played bad. He told me how it was.
When you were younger, after you'd play, was the most important thing you heard from him that he loved you and he cared about you and he was proud of you? Did he say that to you?
Yeah, I mean, there was those moments, and there were other times where we'd be on the ride home and I'd be crying. I mean, there's times where I thought I played really well, and he'd be the first one to tell me I didn't, and those were the times that I needed because when you grow up, not everything's going to be great, and you got to realize that, and you got to grow from that. And I think just having those experiences with both my parents, because throughout my high school and college career, I think both my parents maybe missed one game combined. So I think that, I mean, it was unbelievable support, but they also told me how they felt, which was good too.
Well, hopefully I'll be watching you somewhere next fall on an NFL team, and they'll be in the stands watching as well. That'll be pretty cool. What was the adjustment like going from high school to college? Because now your dad's not your coach, not around. I mean, I'm sure, like you said, they were there, but not coaching anymore directly. So what was that change like?
It was black and white. I'm telling you, so my high school, we ran triple option. Well, when you go to college, you got to be able to pass protect. And I remember my first pass protection play, I tried to one-on-one block the guy, just run block instead of pass blocking, and it actually turned out pretty good. So there was those things like that, being able to kick, post, and all that stuff. I wasn't used to the footwork, and I mean, my first O line coach, because we had a coaching change after my sophomore year. It was one of those things where the one guy, he was a yeller, and I liked when people yelled because it knew that I was doing good or I was doing bad. And it's a learning experience. I mean, just being able to sit in the room, and I think like my freshman year, it was a little weird just because of COVID and stuff, but we practiced the whole year. So we practiced all the way through the spring and being able to get extra reps because those starters weren't going to be practicing every day. So having that and being able to be not just the only one in that position. I mean, there was about 25, 26 kids in my class, and we had it was a little luxury though. We were able to have our own dorm, like our own athletic dorm where it was just athletes, and just being able to talk to them, get through a class. Time management was that was the time where I was able to use my time management the best because all I had was class and football. And it was one of those things where it was very nice because I was able to get that stuff stacked up before uh, the real stuff started happening in the sophomore year. So being able to go through that, I mean, just being able to talk to your coach. I mean, a lot of times college athletes have a tough time talking to their coaches, but at the end of the day, they want you to succeed just as much as they want the team to succeed. So being able to have those conversations, those tough ones, I mean, whether it's talking about your scholarship, whether it's talking about getting extra money here, getting this. I mean, just having those conversations, it may not go well every single time, but having them over and over again creates a nice relationship with your coach.
It sounds to me like you're a very confident young man, and in part because I think having your father as your coach, as well as your track coach, left a big input on you. And but what I think it taught you was to not be afraid to ask questions or talk to the coaches about what's going on. And I'm hearing that. Was that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to ask
Because
questions. You got
but
to
I'm
ask questions.
sure but I'm sure you had teammates that wouldn't ask or wouldn't say anything because they were scared to or afraid to, and they didn't want to hear the negative feedback. I'm sure you saw that quite a bit.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that kind of put them back a little bit in the learning curve. But I think when you sit in those meetings and you have all the older kids in the front or in the middle, and they're able to goof around a little bit more than the younger guys without their notebooks, and just you sitting there asking questions, writing stuff down. I mean, those are the things that you're always going to remember.
What would you suggest to somebody who has the same dreams that you've had to make it to the NFL, get to college and play, say a high school athlete who might be listening to our podcast here? What would you tell them about the mental part of the game? How important is developing the mental part, confidence and focus and a positive attitude?
I mean, it is just as important as hitting the weight room. I mean, that's one of the things that I've had to learn over time is I'm not as strong mentally as I am physically. And that's something that I got to work on. And I think being mentally strong isn't just at your sport. It's about at living your life. I mean, just being able to sit down and relax when you have a lot on your mind and just relaxing yourself and talking to other people. And I mean, I'm not the most confident person. I mean, I've had to go through a couple things where I got to look myself in the mirror every other day and have 5 affirmations about how I feel about myself. And if it's not always the best, I got to make sure that the next day it's better.
So
And
as excuse me, so as a psychologist, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh boy, I want to ask him some questions. So if you don't mind, when you say you're not the most confident person, why not? You seem like a pretty outgoing, straightforward guy to me in our interview here. When you say not the most confident, why not? What was that about?
that's the thing. There's nothing not to be confident about. I don't know. I don't want to. I think there's a silver lining between confidence and arrogant. And I think that from a young age, I never wanted to be arrogant. So I felt like being confident was just too close to that. And I think sometimes that I always thought that I wasn't good enough. And I think the doubt and
Where did that come from? Why did you think that?
being from a small area and being from somewhere where people overlooked all the time because there wasn't a lot of kids at my school and not a lot of I mean, there's one red light. There's not a lot happening. And I think just I don't know, always in the back of my head that like everything that happened, it made me more confident. But I just felt like I don't in the back of my mind there was always a thing where I felt like I never was enough. But I that I've worked on that and yeah, that's how I feel.
Well, obviously, you've overcome a lot of that, or you wouldn't be where you are. What
Mhm.
do you think allowed you to get to that point? So, not feeling that, and maybe, and I'm just guessing, but as a psychologist, I do this a lot. But maybe having your father as your coach, wanting to live up to expectations for him, or live for the expectations of the track coach, you wanted to please him a lot, and maybe, like you said, sometimes you'd be in the car and he'd ream you for the way you played. Maybe the need to please him was so important to you. Maybe there are times you didn't feel that way, and maybe that's affected your confidence as you got older.
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, it was more of like a thing where I had 2 older sisters and the one was a 1,000-point scorer, had a couple track records at my high school. Then the middle sister, she was just as athletic and had a couple records at the high school. And just me being the youngest, I had to try to make my name. And being on the football team, I mean, it's a team sport. Like, you're not making your own records. I mean, unless I'm pancaking somebody out of the stadium every play. So I think just I don't know if it was I don't know. I mean, I think you're getting to somewhere for sure of trying to meet those expectations, but I also think that it helped me make myself who I am.
Well, you've obviously grown a lot and developed a lot from all that. But I think, to me, confidence is the ability to believe in yourself, your skills, your talents. And when I work with this, I've worked with so many professional athletes, Olympic athletes, everybody, no matter what level you play at, you're a human being. You've got feelings, you've got emotions, you've got thoughts. We're all shaped by the way we're coached and parented and influenced by friends growing up. And so probably, like you just said, having 2 older sisters who were really stud athletes, you may have felt there was the need to have to live up to expectations to do well in whatever you're going to do as much as they did.
Yeah.
So, and if you did, did your dad ever get on them like he got on you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So it wasn't just you. You knew that, but you also knew he was doing it out of love, not
Mhm.
because out of anger. And that was
Yeah.
that. See, that's the key thing, because for you, you're fortunate because you knew your dad really cared about you.
Yeah.
Whereas there are a lot of people that have that their parents get on them because it's more about the parent than the athlete. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've dealt with teammates like that throughout your career.
Absolutely.
So for you to be the most confident, so let's get into this then a little bit. For you to be the most confident you can, looking up for the combine, the draft, and everything, what do you think that's going to take? What are you going to have to do for you to be that way? Because I can hear it in your voice, it's there. But what are you going to have to do for that to happen?
I mean, just being able to, I don't want to say cross off the boxes on a checklist, but at the same time, I want to be able to say that, hey, I'm physically ready. Okay. I've been training my butt off. I've been ready to go. I want to be in the best shape of my life. I want to be able to cut out all that garbage that I've been eating my whole life and being able to feel 100%. Being there in the mental game. I mean, you said it there earlier, and I'd give this advice to anybody that's trying to go to college, go to the pros. I mean, you got to be able to be there in the mental game as well. Because I mean, these process, whatever you want to say, are not the easiest, and you got to be able to be at your A game. You got to be able to put your best foot forward. And I think no matter what I do, it's going to be my best effort. And that's all I've ever asked myself of. That's it.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is you can have two athletes who are physically the same, but the one with the stronger mind will be the one who'll come out on top. And having a stronger mind to me is being ready to deal with success and failure and not being scared to fail, not being afraid to mess up. Because look, I get so many people that come into my office and they'll say, Dr. Jacobs, I'm a perfectionist. And then my next question to them is, well, who's perfect? And there's usually a silence. Well, either they say God or nobody. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, if nobody's perfect and you're trying to be perfect, where's that leave you? So to me, it's about confidence is about the ability to believe in yourself, but know you can overcome adversity, negativity, or things that work out for you. And it sounds like, Brock, you've done that. That's why I think you've gotten to this point.
Yeah. I like the way you put that about confidence. I really like that.
Well, so for you to be able to do the best you can, what do you think it's going to take now? Because now, like you said, you're just focusing on getting ready for what might happen in the NFL. So combine, the draft, have people looking at you, getting an agent, the whole process. It's about confidence. Mm-hmm. And so for that to happen for you the best it can, what do you think you're going to need to do?
I mean, I already said I got to trade my butt off, but I mean, I also got to be able to, I think something that's overlooked all the time is being able to talk to these people like one-on-one. I mean, these teams aren't just going to talk to your agent all the time. Like, you're going to be able to have to talk to them. You're going to have to be able to get in situations that are tougher than you've ever been in, and just being able to not survive, but excel during change. I mean, just being able to be put in a situation, and the outlook might not be good, but you got to be able to have that confidence in yourself to be able to put your best foot forward and put your best effort out there. I mean, I think being able to say somebody calls and being able to talk to them and tell them who you are as a person, and then show up and know the playbook. I mean, just getting there is a great step, but you got to be able to perform there when you get there.
A few weeks ago, I had Nick Lowry on the show. Nick Lowry, when he retired in 1996, was the most accurate kicker in football history, and he kicked more field goals than anybody in football history. He worked with me the last 12 years he competed. And Nick went to Dartmouth, and he was cut 11 times by 8 teams before the Chiefs signed him in 1980. And he ended up beating out Jan Stenerud, who became the first kicker in the Hall of Fame. Jan was the Chiefs' hero in Super Bowl IV when the Chiefs beat the Vikings in New Orleans in 1970. Hopefully a repeat of a victory in New Orleans that'll happen here in a couple of weeks, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, he talked about how every time he was cut by a team that he tried out for, he'd ask the special teams coach, what I have to do to get better. We can't repeat here on our podcast what some of them told him, but a lot of them would say, well, if you work on this and this and this, you get better. And he kept a journal throughout his career. And he said that really helped him because he always looking at what he had to do better. And so that's something I work with a lot of people on is keep a journal. At the end of the day, write down, how did it go today? What did I do that was good? What do I need to improve on? And what are a couple goals for tomorrow? And what I found is with so many of the athletes I work with, that's really, no matter what level, it's really helped them get to the next place. So that might be something that might be helpful for you as well. I don't know if you already do that.
I went to church. It's a little bit past, but the one time I was at church and the homily, they were talking about writing down 3 things you enjoyed in the day, 3 things you didn't enjoy in the day, and 3 things that you want to have happen in the next couple of years. and you just keep writing that down every day. And I think it just reminds you about how you live your life and how there's good and there's bad and there's things that you want, but you can't just make that happen. You gotta build up to it. You gotta do things in order for those things to happen.
Look, before we wrap things, I really enjoyed talking with you, and I can tell, Brock, and I'm not BSing you here. You've got it together. You understand it, but the key thing is going to be really challenging yourself. So let me ask you three definitions. What's your definition, first of all, winning? How would you define winning?
I think winning is when the person across from you is not up and you're the one standing up. Like, I think it's the one that lasts the longest and the one that, man, you're hitting me with all these tough questions. I think it's the definition of winning is being the last one standing. I think that's my definition.
Losing, second one.
You're not the last one standing. I feel like you didn't do your job. You didn't. That's how I feel about losing.
Didn't live up to your expectations, what you
Yes.
wanted.
Yeah.
And the last one, self-confidence. How would you define that?
Self-confidence is having the inner ability to win both physically and mentally.
Well, listen, you've hit all those on the head. I can see why you have gotten the success you've had, because not, from your dad, from your track coach, from your mom, from your sisters. Okay, we're all shaped by the way we grow up and the people that influence us. And obviously, you've had a lot of adversity to deal with, but also a lot of support and reinforcement. And so, what I want to suggest to you now is just keep doing what you've been doing, young man, because I think you've got a good future ahead of you. Just keep staying focused on the task, and you've got the right attitude of what you got to do. And I really appreciate what you've been sharing with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, if people would like to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
I mean, I don't want to put my phone number out there, but my email, just Brock Gingrich 5@gmail.com. I mean, I'm open to have any conversations.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I can see a lot of success from what you've done, and a lot of success that's going to keep happening for you. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed our conversation tonight, check out my website, winnersunlimited.com. Click on the podcast tab. You can listen to tons of shows we've done like this. And, this young man right here is a great example of what it takes to get where you want to go. And I can see a good future for him. So thanks, Brock, for being with us. Once again, winnersunlimited.com. And my radio show is the Sports Psychology Hour. It's on all the podcast apps, and my website, winnersunlimited.com.